我们反对的是共产党，它给世界带来了恐惧。这个带来的恐惧的原因，就是因为我们懦弱、自私。他们70年来欺骗了全世界，威胁了中国人，才让中国共产党有今天在全世界的风头。大家想一想，我郭文贵如果去了其他国家，我的结局是什么？不是把我锯掉了，是直接把我放到机器里变成火腿肠了，波式火腿肠。而且在座的很多华人朋友，你们根本没有机会站在这个舞台上，因为共产党70年来都是成功的。
Evil done in Victoria streets, painted red and wood line. The handgun, the curtains untied, the unaccounted bounce of treasures, no counterfeit, motion outside. It's Scotland Yard, they be working all night long. Nobody's left to go on the go for doubles back, smiling for his mind.
They sounded like a 70s. These days and girl, let me play out your ending. The morning light will always fade away tonight, or to this taken from our side.
他的恐吓，他的蓝金黄，他的威胁，让我们失去了尊严，失去了安全，失去了发声的自由和权利。我们感恩美国，我们感恩西方的媒体朋友们，与我们一起寻求真相，寻求正义。
How can the truth get exposed to places where no one goes? The simple smell of a rose, the secrets start to unfold. Every person wears a mask of fashion, reason and lie. Every action has a reason, that reason desire. Oh Father, 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 oh Father, Father, Father. In this life, how can we live without never saying just once? We can forgive and forget, but we can live and let rest that cannot take the pieces that are coming to you and set light up. I hear a step close behind me, familiar smell, a flashing light. The door opens, we're turning around, the pages blind, living written, crimson to the touch. No, so unhappy, row, row, no, this much felt too much as though I know it's the end. Can help but think of the reason I fought to defend the only justice and you now lives on silently, words written to be seen. I hear a step behind me,
They sounded like a 70s.
I'm turning around, the pages blind, living written, crimson to the touch. No, so unhappy, row, row, no, this much.
Light will always fade away tonight, or to this taken from our side.
共产党对西方的威胁，绝对不是我在这里能形容的。接下来用我们的行动来证明给所有的全人民看，共产党是世界上最大的毒瘤。共产党一天待在中国，它都是人类最大的威胁。郭文贵总是有一句话，我们老叫身先阳谷先搭线，我要用事实行动证明给你们。
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Lila Hosh. Tampering with the history is a characteristic of the CCP. During World War II, Chiang Kai-shek led the Kuomintang and the Chinese people to cooperate with the Western world to achieve victory in the China's anti-Japanese war. But the CCP declared themselves as anti-Japanese war heroes. No matter it is in the students' textbooks or any written records, the CCP utterly twisted the truth. For example, the Great Famine that occurred in the late 1950s and early 1960s starved to death at least 14 million people, and the CCP government falsified the death toll. The cause of the famine was originally maybe 70% man-made disasters and 30% natural disasters. However, the CCP said the natural disasters were the main cause. Tiananmen Square incident on June 4th, 1989 was a peaceful democratic student movement under the Constitution. But the CCP labeled it as a counter-revolutionary riot. And massacred unarmed students and citizens with tanks and guns. The CCP is a master of the media. They know exactly how to influence people's opinions on the things they want to hide. I know the CCP has a memory of history and brainwash Chinese people, but this time I personally witnessed how the CCP erased history. They deleted almost all the posts on the internet about the Henan flood, Gansu earthquake, and Guizhou forest fire. Shocking things are the Western mainstream media acting like the CCP state media to promote the CCP's propaganda. They act the same way as the CCP state media. In July 2021, severe flooding in extensive areas of Henan province caused by extremely heavy rainfall, as well as a series of secondary disasters caused by human factors, have affected more than 10 million people in 150 counties in Henan province. From 19th to 20th of July 2021, the total rainfall in Zhengzhou for 3 consecutive days reached 617.1 milliliters, while the average annual rainfall in Zhengzhou is 640.8 milliliters. There was a constant plea for help from those affected local areas through the internet, but cities and villages submerged in filthy water. Streets have been turned into rivers, and a large number of cars are floating on the water, with some being swept away by the rapids. The official website of the Henan Provincial Water Resources Department also mentioned that this extraordinary heavy rainfall in Henan is a 1 in 5,000 year event. Unfortunately, however, the CCP seems to have taken no precautions. All the China's floods have man-made factors, because the CCP can control the flood water released from reservoirs, and there's no longer any natural floods in China, but man-made and controlled floods. If the government feels that there is a crisis, it will release more water, so that the threat to the downstream will be greater. And the CCP does not care how many people die. What is even more unacceptable is that the Zhengzhou was hit by torrential rain, but there was no report on any of the channels in Henan. And Henan TV were still playing anti-Japanese dramas. The internet was full of messages asking for help, but the state media did not report anything. And here we are going to share some tragic scenes for Henan flood.
现在车厢量好几百人，等待紧急救援，等待紧急救援。
The man just mentioned that there are hundreds of people trapped in the subway waiting for emergency help. There was little information about the rural area in Henan, and there are people who suffer the most in the countryside of Henan. Most of them are empty nesters, unattended children. They barely knew how to ask help on internet.
那车多着了，那车，看看这都是刚刚露出来的，看看，妈的，这跟鸡巴灾难大片似的，我的娘！哎呀！
这
哎，有人回来。啊，那就是俺亮个灯了，回来。换了。这就。
他家是转哪了一条，又冲了要动啊，冲了。
The Guardian reported on 26th of July 2021, foreign journalists reporting on the aftermath of China's flooding disaster have faced hostile confrontations in the street and been subjected to vicious campaigns amid increasing nationalistic sensitivity to any negative portrayals of Communist China. On X, there was a clear orchestrated campaign of harassment which included threats of violence and family target abuse sent to the private phones to those working in the foreign media. Telling truth is a crime of violation of national security in CCP China.
河南郑州遭到暴雨袭击，灾情惨重，其中整条京广隧道更瞬间被洪水吞噬，大批民众受困其中，根本来不及逃。事后，地方救援人员紧急排水清淤，进行抢救，把受困车辆挖出。只见一辆又一辆轿车反复堆积隧道口，景象惨不忍睹。最新画面更直击，里头搬出一具具遗体，俨然沦为死亡隧道。一名曾在现场的拖车司机更爆料，已经发现6000多具遗体，而且死亡人数恐怕在增加。这个数字远远低于中国官方公布的数字，被质疑根本是刻意隐匿灾情。
大家只关注今天发生的所有新谣言，没有人在乎过去的欺骗。这是我们文化的悲哀，是我们华人世界的悲哀。在任何一个国家，你撒过1000多次谎，在短短的100天里边，不可能没有人追究。
各位好，欢迎收看晚间新闻。中国华北、东北连降暴雨。当局为了保北京和雄安新区的安全，大规模无预警泄洪，导致河北多地被淹，损失惨重。而央视新闻造假，引爆了民间的愤怒，大量受灾民众前往当地政府抗议。8月7日，河北涿州部分洪水已经消退，涿州城西被淹地区的居民发视频讲述，当地受灾严重，空气中弥漫着强烈的异味，引发民众猜测是来自于大量遇难者遗体和动物尸体。
现在我们已经从东城坊镇进入了边个庄乡，这个可能大家隔着屏幕闻不到，他们这儿这个气味就比较大了，就很浓重的这个臭味儿，太臭了！我儿子让我把窗户都关上了。
在洪灾肆虐之际，中国大陆多地出现异象。8月6日和7日，云南昆明滇池附近有大量白鲢鱼不断跳出水面，有的还跳到游艇上。当地市民表示，这种情况比较罕见。
你看15米高，
在河南横辉市，当地下大雨以后，河水涨水，沧河河道内有2处出现水柱喷涌，如巨型喷泉，不少人前来拍照。遭遇洪灾的河北也出现地面喷水的情况，还疑似伴随雾气。
你们有谁见过这儿的活跃的
？8月1日晚，在湖北枣阳太平镇，天空中出现罕见血月。
新中国联邦人在世界上的消灭中国共产党的抗议运动是怎么回事？现在又干涉内政了啊，是违反国际法和国际准则的行为。这句话很重啊。下一个问号就是新中国联邦有多大影响力？会成为代替中国共产党的政治实体吗？这个是简体中文和英文就差距很大了，和英文。你看看，这是100%控制啊！郑州水灾到底淹死了多少人？这个ChatGPT完全替共产党回答问题了。像华春莹300人死亡，哎呀，他大爷的，超过300人也可以300万人的小体啊！这帮孙子完全是按照共产党的设计啊，太可怕了。他英文的说是302人因洪水而死亡，尽管实质数字可能更高，许多人也受伤，数千人被疏散离开家园。洪水是由于该地区异常的强降雨造成的，100%，这是设计了强降雨，他没有说人为的泄洪导致，还有社会上大量的争议。哇，这个是100%的中国政府控制。哇塞
！It is not just flooding disaster, but a man-made calamity. Because the CCP drew off water from the reservoirs and they don't care how many people die. Here smells a revelation on Henan's flood disaster.
A dictatorial regime or government must tell lies and falsify stories when it faces the struggle between human lives and personal political futures. Because there is no accountability, the worst aspects of human nature will be revealed. And the dictatorial government usually has no accountability and is good at covering itself up. At the end, the person with the most power will escape all responsibilities. That's why people take chances. This is an inevitable result. This is why we must annihilate the Chinese Communist Party and give the Chinese people a democratically elected, one person, one vote government. Whether COVID-19 is a natural disaster or a man-made one, a dictatorial government must report good news only to continue fooling its people and playing with their will. I heard this extraordinary example from a certain CCP's cadre from Hunan, with whom I am very familiar. He said that he would report to the Central Committee at a meeting to ask the head of the party to be at ease. The people of Hunan, who have a long history of patriotism for the country and the party, will follow the party's instructions and absolutely stand with the party while facing this catastrophe in history. We will do what the party tells us to do and say what the party tells us to say. We control the so-called narratives of the people and the opinions of the public. Let the disaster become the pride of Hunan. I was pissed off after hearing this. Fellow fighters, at this very moment, the officials of Hunan province are still selling out the safety and interests of its people. What did it mean to control the narratives of the people? What did he mean to listen to and stand with the party? That's the party that decides how many people die and blames all this on God. Then, it will say that the disaster relief was great and timely. During the 17 hours since the disaster began, no more than 500 people have stepped forward to help. Millions of people were affected, but the officials announced a 180-member team and a 110-member team. Did you notice that? Together, there were less than 500 people to help Hunan, a place where the population is 100 million. Can you tell me how the CCP helped with the disaster? It shut down all mobile communications, the Unicom. The Unicom numbers of the so-called Hunan Provincial Party Committee and the provincial government's officials were all on, but the numbers of ordinary people were all disconnected. How many people would be killed when Unicom disconnected people's mobile phones to prevent people from telling the truth? How much would this delay the chance of saving lives? Has anyone thought about that? Was this a man-made disaster? Wasn't this a man-made disaster? This is the so-called wonderful tradition of Hunan's officials, listening to the party, sealing the people's mouths, and standing with the party. Hunan is indeed a place like this. I told you that the poorest province was the one that paid the most public grain and taxes. Hunan was where its officials took people's money, grain, and future as a token of their own promotion. Even before their bodies were found, they had made decisions for the families of the dead. They listened to the party in all matters. If the party says we're dead, we're dead. If the party says we're not dead, we're not dead. And we even have to thank the party for letting my family die. In the future, you'll have to face the camera and pretend to be touched by the fact that a few more of your family members died as a result of the armed police rescue, right? How evil is this party? How evil is this party? Fellow fighters, it's not just about getting rid of it but annihilating or ending it. It's the CCP that commits genocide in Xinjiang and is committing genocide in Zhengzhou now. In any natural disaster, the government has the right and duty to do anything to help and must not cover up the truth. The government has to make the right decisions, delaying all possible chances to save lives from natural catastrophes. Such a government must be held accountable, and this is no different from a war crime. To anyone with conscience, do you think this is normal?
Now we're going to talk about another natural disaster. It's about earthquake in Gansu. On 18th of December 2023, around midnight, an earthquake with magnitude of 5.9 to 6.2 struck Jinshishan country in Gansu province. And the shallow thrust faulting earthquake struck a densely populated area on the border between the province of Gansu and Qinghai. It was China's worst earthquake in a decade. And Premier Lila estimates in decades that the disaster cost 532 million RMB. That means 74.6 million US dollars. Indirect economic losses to Gansu agricultural, livestock, and fishery industries, as well as at least 149 deaths. And can we trust the CCP state media? First, why there was the cessation of the search and rescue announced after 30 hours of the earthquake. The golden time for rescue in an earthquake is 72 hours, but the CCP officials stopped the rescue on the second day, and the rescue time was only 15 hours. In some remote mountainous villages, no rescuer has ever arrived at all. Netizens quoted villagers as saying the temperature was as low as minus 10 degrees. Who came to rescue? The officials sent a helicopter, dozens of vehicles, hundreds of officials and soldiers. That is to show off, posing for pictures, then go back home. Secondly, why social rescue forces from other provinces and cities not advised to go for the rescue? And the purpose of orchestrating or even driving away foreign rescue teams on the ground of unified coordination, it is to prevent the disclosure of the tragic situation and the number of deaths and injuries in the local disaster area. Thirdly, why was that just half of a day after the earthquake, the official announcement was made that more than 100 people had died, but 3 days have passed, and the death toll remains unchanged. How ridiculous is it? The truth is that a total of 1,836 people were affected in a single GETTR village in Zhongchuan Township, Haidong City, Qinghai Province. The video will show you how the tragic scene of the earthquake.
房子光有这个的楼房有它给这呀，看个这，看呐，真是大这，全部这，有它就直接。
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh， 家人们看，这边的房子全部倒塌了。
你看天色又在远处落下，寂寞的城道别天边晚霞。 迷茫的人走在路上想家，生活的虽然泪横过脸颊。谁在？
今天来谈谈遮羞墙。甘肃积石山县地震过后，暴露了一个很严重的问题，那就是很多被粉刷过的墙倒塌了。 这些墙外表看起来很好看，统一的颜色让人感觉干净整齐，同时在外人看来也很安全。当然，这种安全是名义上的安全。有人说，正是这场地震让我们看到了甘肃的另外一面，看到了大西北农村的贫穷，看到了很多土坯房。当然，平时我们是看不到这些土坯房的，因为它们在涂料的加持下显得异常美丽安全。新农村建设这么多年，美丽乡村的口号也提了那么久，也取得了非常大的成就。但是很多地方急于求成，简单的把外墙粉刷一下，就以为是新农村，把房屋安全这个最重要的东西忽略掉，着实令人匪夷所思。涂料也是要钱的，而且还不便宜。难道我们真的要继续花钱去粉饰太平吗？是不是应该把注意力放到安全这个点上，想一想如何确保人民群众房屋的安全？毕竟有小家才有大家。
这个，我做早跑这锅子给我叠过这么有嘛，至少给我供着喝的嘛。
这个赶紧哈！啊！
Shocking. You can see the poverty from a state of houses. The 6.2 magnitude earthquake caused a large number of houses to collapse. Because these houses were completely incapable of earthquake resistance. The state media report that a total of 134 people has been killed in the Gansu and Qinghai due to the earthquake. Do you believe it? Here's some more ridiculous news. After the earthquake in Gansu, December 18th, the rescue team of the Haidong Foundation Han Honghang Foundation arrived in the disaster area one after another on the evening of 19th to organize rescue work. On December 23rd, the Secretary of the Party Committee of the Gansu branch of the Red Cross Society of the China criticized Han Hong by name, ordered the disaster relief team organized by the Han Hong Foundation to immediately evacuate the disaster area, close the channel for accepting donations, and transferred more than 16 million RMB donations to the Red Cross account. How much the Red Cross gave the rescue in Gansu? 2 million RMB. And how much they provided for the emergency rescue in Gaza? 15 million US dollars. This is the community China. Some of the American people in New York City are welcoming seriously want to live under the community's control regime. Here's Mao's opinion on the earthquake. Please play the video of Miles. Thank you.
Back then the Tangshan earthquake, the Japanese tsunami, the Indonesian tsunami. Do you know how many people died in the Indonesian tsunami? Who suffered the most loss of lives in the Indonesia tsunami? The locals, the tourists, and especially the Chinese tourists, who were the first group of people escaped. It was Europeans and Americans and Canadians. People from civilized countries have basic education and awareness of natural disasters from an early age, as well as education about earthquakes, so they fled. In communist China, from the Tangshan earthquake to the entire Sichuan earthquake and the Wenchuan earthquake, when all the disasters come, most of the Chinese people are. Firstly, they have no basic knowledge of natural phenomena. Secondly, the CCP doesn't want them to know the truth either. Thirdly, the people are so ignorant that they are happy to see others die. The CCP has said again and again that trials and tribulations rejuvenate a nation, that is, a nation rises from the death of more people. If fewer people die, the local government wins. If more people die, the country wins. This is what Wen Jiabao said during the Wenchuan earthquake, trials and tribulations rejuvenate a nation. That's why the Chinese Communist Party considers the death of 50 or 60 million people in Sichuan and Tibetan areas as the beginning of the country's prosperity. It's just that there are fewer people digging for wild vegetables and cordyceps, so it's less of a burden for them. And it gives the CCP an excuse to make more evil policies. And then more so-called relief, just to make more corrupt officials get richer. It's called a way of balancing wealth, using nature to balance the dead. So, what was Wenchuan in yesterday's Sichuan earthquake? The monkeys were running all over the mountain. What were the people saying on their mobile phones? There are too many monkeys. They've come to steal our food. The locals saw it as a joke, and then the earthquake hit. Many people were buried alive in the mountains of Sichuan. Many of our fellow fighters in Sichuan, including government officials, said yesterday that there were countless people buried in the mountains, and that no one could count them because the mountains had collapsed and they were disappeared. And the government doesn't allow counting the dead, and now the CCP does the most. Delete posts, delete posts, delete posts. No speeches allowed. Control the media. Shut up. This is the sorrow of all Chinese people. Brothers and sisters, when you die, you don't even have a name. You won't be remembered for a week. You won't be remembered for even a second. If you see it, you are forced to shut your eyes. If you know it, you are forced to shut your mouth. The dead is really worse than an ant.
Natural disasters are not important at all in the CCP's education system. What matters most is a moral education, which means to improve CCP's ideological and politics orientation, to love the CCP more than their parents. So most young people don't know what are the natural disasters and how to protect themselves in front of natural disasters. We have talked about Henan flood, Gansu earthquake. Now let's come to Guizhou wildfire. Guizhou is a mountainous province with its higher altitude in the west and center. It lies at the eastern end of Yungui Plateau. We can see the beautiful sceneries, and Guizhou borders the autonomous regions of Guangxi to the south, Yunnan to the west. Demographically, it is one of China's most diverse provinces. The population of Guizhou is more than 38 million, and the minority groups account for more than 37% of the population, including sizable populations of the Miao, Buyi, Dong, Tujia, and Yi people, and all of whom speak the language distinct from Chinese Mandarin. The province of Yunnan spans approximately 394 square kilometers and has a population of 48.3 million. And Yunnan is situated in the mountainous area. Yunnan is one of the most ethnically diverse provinces of China, with ethnic minorities accounting for about 34% of its total population. Major ethnic groups include Yi, Bai, Han, Zhuang, Dai, and Miao. Large portion of Guangxi are hilly and mountainous. The population of Guangxi is more than 31 million, and Guangxi contains the largest population of China's ethnic minorities, after Yunnan in particular. You'll see the beautiful case where the traditional Zhuang clothes and the Zhuang people who make up 34% of population. It has over 16 million Zhuangs, the largest minority ethnicity in China. Over 20% of Zhuang in China live in Guangxi, especially in the central and western regions. Do you know what happened recently to these beautiful provinces? Yeah, on 10th of February, excuse me, forest fire broke out in province of Guizhou and the fire continuously burned for 12 days until the 21st, when the Chinese Communist Party reported that the fire was under control. But for this natural and humanitarian disaster, the state media waited for 12 days to report it. Videos taken by the netizens show wildfire striking through the nets, forming a great wall of flames. On the highway in Guizhou, flames were seen rushing up the road. The fires said the fires said to burn an area. People said the fire has burned an area equivalent to 2 Taiwans, and the fire in Guizhou have spread to areas as Guangxi, Yunnan, and Sichuan province. From the state media, there are only 2 deaths. And there were even rumors of conspiracy theories that the Guizhou fire was the work of Japanese spies. Do you think where the grandma who was crying in the video, where she's going to live? Do you think she will get help from the government? The CCP has never thought about the rescue. The so-called rescue only for their political performance. They have never thought about the efficiency ways to deal with the natural disasters. And the donations have never truly used by the victims but turned into the wealth of some CCP officials. The last video shows the wildfire is not just in Guizhou, it has spread to Guangxi and Yunnan. But how do you think these beautiful villages turned into ashes? As we mentioned before, Guangxi, Guizhou, and Yunnan have most of the minorities who are living in the middle of mountains. If any village destroys by the wildfire, maybe it is extinction of a minority. Is this genocide? No matter it is flood, earthquake, or forest fire, the CCP is always doing the following things. First, no timely reports. So some of victims lost the basic evacuation time. The CCP delays people's pleas for help on the internet, intimidate, or threatens those who spread the truth. Second, the so-called relief turned into a political showtime to fool Chinese people, and surviving victims of the disasters will have to live without any help from the CCP government. Those who lost their lives in the disaster even does not deserve to have a name. However, the CCP officials get a big fortune by donations or by selling the donations. Some of them even got promotions from natural disasters. So tell me, what do you think? Is it a natural disaster or man-made catastrophe? The CCP has obvious core characteristic. You can easily find out countless facts to show the anti-human and anti-social cult nature of the CCP.
When the CCP says, to kill 1,000 enemies, we can sacrifice 800 of our people, this does not include anyone's child in the Zhongnan pit. Who is hurt now? Those deserve Chinese people. Just like back then, I heard Ming Jinju say, when those relatives in Jiangxi are getting old, do you know how much we have to spend on medical bills for them? I have done the calculation. After a person reaches 70, if he is given medical treatment according to Western medicine, the government has to pay back about 30 to 45 times the money that each person earns from farming in his lifetime. So, how can one expect our country to pay for it? These people deserve to die. Even if you die, the country will not be able to bury you. Your children will support you. So, now this is what the CCP is promoting, isn't it? Depending on yourself for your old age care. If you depend on your country for your old age care, you are unpatriotic. So, when the CCP says, how can we deal with these people? How long will these people live? Do you think those whom they worry to live a long life include those in the Zhongnan pit? Zhu Rongji, one of the Zhongnan pit guys, has lived over 100 years. So is Jiang Zemin. Who in Zhongnan pit wouldn't live 90, 80, or 100 years old? Do you think this is just because of better medical treatment or air conditioning? The vast majority of them use serum and other so-called inhumane methods that are not allowed to be used in medical treatments around the world to keep them alive. It was a blessing to the country that Ding can live over 90 or 100 years old. When Deng Xiaoping died, even ordinary people cried, including me. Do you think people will cry when ordinary people die? How many people cried when young Galen died? When they say they can sacrifice 800 people, they mean sacrificing ordinary people. It is to kill ordinary people. The CCP cannot wait for you to die. This will never harm the CCP but make it better. This is what is obvious. Let's not talk about others, but just look at some people in the army. I won't reveal who they are since they are still in office. This one is my buddy, and we had a huge dispute. He said 600 million is the best total number of the Chinese population. How can we divide the 600 million people? If we divide the number into 3 parts, 1/3 old people, 1/3 children, and 1/3 middle-aged people, this country will be strong. This guy is now the one that Xi Jinping trusts the most, and he is from the army. I said, according to what you said, one day we will implement natural death. Under unnatural death, should many of our elderly people be shot? He said, that's right, we will have to kill them when the time comes. This was their heartfelt thought, and they made no secret of it. People like Jin Sanrong, Zhang Xiaozhong, and Hu Xijin really believe that they can live up to 100 years old. So, for ordinary people, we'd better get rid of them all after the age of 60 by injecting poison directly. Now, they are letting Americans kill you with the vaccine, and this is very gentle on you, ordinary people.
The thing is that a dictatorial regime must tell lies, must falsify to maintain his power. Without supervision, people can easily bring out the dark side of human nature, and no one hold accountable for their crimes. CCP takes advantage of the whole nation to benefit themselves and a few families from the party. The CCP doesn't represent Chinese people, and the Chinese people is the first victims of the CCP. The hardworking and wisdom Chinese people deserve to have freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. Okay. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Down the CCP, take down the CCP. Follow me and I'ma set us free. Take down the CCP. Let me tell you what I've been through, baby. Lived a life that was hella unfair. Seen things that been driving me crazy. In a country where the leaders don't care. Didn't think we had the courage to change it. Tore it down and they weren't prepared. Everything that they kept us from saying. Now we talking and they better be scared. Take from us. Tell us what and who to love. Swear I finally had enough. It's time to rise above. Take down the CCP. Take down the CCP. Follow me and I'ma set us free. Take down the CCP. I said, take down the CCP. Take down the CCP. Communism's dead to me because it killed our families. The CCP.